Here we are on episode 15 of the Welcome Home podcast. This podcast is all about the transformation from troops and boots to veterans in the civilian world. I'm Andy Weins, and today we have a very special episode because I'm joined by my good buddy Travis Johnson. What's that? Episode 14. Taylor already told me it was episode 14, so I was already an episode ahead. We're living in the future. Anyways, episode 14. This is how you know it's not edited, because we make simple choices like that are incorrect, and yet we drive on. Anyways, joined by Travis Johnson as a professional podcaster. He's been on this podcast in the past. He's been on my other podcast, the Trash Talk Business Podcast, and we needed someone to co-host this thing because we have a good buddy of mine. We used to work together, Matt Schneider, on the podcast. Matt works for a business and wants to work with and recruit more vets, and well, this is a place to do it. We often talk about from a veteran's perspective, right? What does it look like? I have a reserve background. Travis has a active 22 years enlisted and officer side background with the Navy, and Matt's coming to us from a civilian's perspective. So this will allow us to have that conversation. What does it look like when you are transforming from a troop in boots to a veteran in the civilian world, and who are the people you can count on and rely on so that you get the meaningful career that you know, a lot of times you have a second career. What is that going to look like for you? So, Travis, Matt, thanks for being on the podcast today. So let's start in Travis. Let's start with you real quick. A little background for people that don't know you, haven't listened to your episode of this podcast yet. Give us a little bit about your background. Navy, 22 years, officer, enlisted, ejection seats, all the things, so people get a better idea of who you are and why you're here today.
Yeah, absolutely, Andy. I'm here today mostly because he said, "Hey, you want to hop on a call in 30 minutes?" I said, "Yeah, let's do it. I got nothing better to do." So that's why I'm here today. Why I was invited is probably a longer story, one that involves 22 years of naval service. As he mentioned, I joined in July 2000 out of Fargo, North Dakota MEPS, which is just, it seems like eons ago already, even though I retired last year from a 22-year career. I enlisted. Got into ejection seats as an aviation mechanic safety equipment technician, helped launch F-18s off three different aircraft carriers. I was going to say flight carriers. I'm like, that's not true. I've been out for a year. I already forgot what they're called. Three different aircraft carriers, and got stationed in Oklahoma for the better part of 20 years, which is just insane. People are like, why would you do that? I was like, well, if you pick the right aircraft, you don't ever have to go to the boat. So I made the switch. Ended up in the middle of the country, and I've been doing that ever since 2002. Got selected for the Seaman to Admiral program after 11 years in the Navy and got commissioned, went to flight school as a naval flight officer or as the JOC runs, a non-flying officer. Since I don't do any of the flying, I just ride along, take care of the mission just like Goose and Top Gun. And got into podcasting while I was in Bahrain, deployed for a year, retired last year, and all of a sudden all I do is podcasting, whether it's scheduled or you get a text from your buddy that says, "Hey, you want to show up in 20 minutes?" Sure, I'd love to.
See, this is what I love about the military, and Matt will jump into this. So Matt reached out to me a couple weeks ago. He's like, "Hey, man, I know you do a lot of stuff. I see you all over social media. Like, I want to bring in more veterans because he wants engineers. He wants to hire engineers. And he sees veterans as people that can do attitude, we get it done." And this is a case in point. You know, the situation where I have a co-host, he had a scheduling conflict. We call somebody in, and often with the military, I always think about this, right? When the op order, the operations order come down, the first thing you do as a non-commissioned officer is you start tentative movement. You start moving towards the thing. You're like, I don't know what gear, what personnel, what equipment, I don't know yet. And yet I'm going to start moving towards the mission, right? Because that's what it takes. And that's one of the things that separates military from civilians is we see that there's an objective, there's a mission that's got to be had, and we start tentative movement. We'll figure out when we get there. Often they get the paralysis by analysis, and often in the military that's not the case, right? We get real-time information. It comes as we go, and we figure it out. So, Matt, you're on the hot seat. Why are you joining us on the podcast today?
Well, I've been trying to figure out a way, well, first of all, to give back. Second of all, there's a shortage of engineers, shortage of surveyors in my profession that we can't seem to fill those gaps. And it doesn't matter what you do for young people. They don't seem to see where the benefits are in what we do. Now, I have been blessed to work on some of the most complex, most beautiful bridges in the nation. And what we do is pretty cool. right? And it's hard to get that word out there to young people to say, or even to young people, or even to veterans, say, hey, we do some pretty cool stuff. If you have a passion for this, if you have that discipline that says, hey, I need to show up every day at this time, and I need to be on point every single day, then we're out there. We're out there. Come and talk to us, because we need you and we want to help you if we can. And that's really why when I keep seeing you on social media, Andy, I keep saying, hey, you know what? This guy's got a footprint. I need to get a hold of you, because I was struggling to find that door in. And it's really been beneficial even since we've talked, Andy. It's been really beneficial, looking into, DoD programs and things like that.
What, Travis, from the Navy's perspective, so the Army recently put out Skill Bridge, where when you're coming off active duty, they'll pay you your rate. So I got a buddy who's coming out as an E5. What did you write down? Okay, DoD Skill Bridge. All right, talk to me about Skill Bridge from the I'm active duty. How do they spin it? Talk to me about that, because I know nothing about this. See, this you're right. 6 minutes into the podcast, already paying dividends.
Already paying dividends. So the DoD Skill Bridge program is a fantastic partnership between the DoD and civilian employers. The great thing about it, and I actually did this program, is you get to work 3 to 6 months of your career. Your last 3 to 6 months, you are working for a partner like Matt Schneider here. And Matt Schneider doesn't pay you. You keep getting your active duty pay and benefits. So it's a fantastic program, but you got to have W-2 employees in order to qualify. And then the employer must give them a job offer at the end of the time. As long as they complete the program, they have to have a job offer. Now, when I went through mine, my job offered me $7.50 an hour for 20 hours a week. And it's not because I'm terrible. It's because they were going through an acquisition at the time. And they said, call back in 2 weeks, and we'll see where we are with this acquisition. It's supposed to go down March 15th, and then we'll know or not whether we can give you like a legit job. And it turns out the acquisition fell through, and the company was de facto bankrupt, which is just kind of crazy. So I dodged all of my stuff that I did to line myself up to get out of the military and get into something interesting, and it completely fell through for me, which is a big blessing for me. That allows me to get into and go all in on something like podcasting, which I probably wouldn't have done had that job opportunity came and actually went through. But it's a big push, right? Especially for the service member, because anytime that you're going to get out, right? And we talked about transitioning since day one. When you're getting in day one, you have to think about your transition. What skills do you need to accrue? Who do you need to meet? What kind of paperwork do you have, certifications and whatnot, in order to be valuable in the outside world? And something like Skill Bridge, no kidding, is the bridge between your service and that next career.
No, that's interesting, and I'm glad you brought this up. I heard this years ago. I'm an Army Reserve Career Counselor. I got 19 years in this month. I continue to mentor soldiers on their careers transition, and I heard this from a mentor of mine years ago, was the day that your transition begins is the day you join the military. Because all too often we think, oh, the day I transition, the day I get home, I'll start thinking about what I'm going to do, or a week before I go home. Really, it's to that point, it's okay, what are you doing every day in your military career? Because when you join the military at 17, 18, and you get out at some day in the future, you went from being a child to an adult, and now you have to be an adult in the civilian world. And there's a lot there. Like, Matt, you said it from the top. Hey, we need someone that's going to show up every day on time and dedicated. And when you don't have battle buddies getting out of the racks with you, we don't have an NCO texting you or calling you or kicking your bed, that's on you. And it's got to be a choice. I like, Matt, how you spoke about how the beautiful bridges and the passion you have for what you do, because in the military, passion happens over time, right? It's more about the passion for the guys to your left and your right, or what you're doing tactically, right? You enjoy the thing. Often you're not thinking about the big picture. At least for me, it wasn't. It wasn't like I was winning the war in Iraq. No, I was hanging out with my buddies and, hauling fuel and talking shit. And the flip side is when you're in the civilian world, you're building something. Your career matters to others, and it matters to this end state. You're talking about building bridges. Like, how awesome is that every day you get to go to work and you say, I'm part of that. I know my father's a contractor, and the old joke is, your father's not going to remember your birthday, but if you drive through a neighborhood, he can tell you about every door or deck or window he put in. And I'll tell you what, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about my dad when I'm driving in certain roads. He's like, oh, I put up those concrete barriers, or yep. He told me he growing up as a kid, he's like, oh, I built the Home Bridge. I thought he was true. No, he patched concrete on it one summer for like a month, right? So, but as far as I was concerned as a kid, he built the Hone Bridge, which is famous in Milwaukee for being the bridge to nowhere. They built the bridge, total side note in Milwaukee, they built the Hone Bridge before the interstate got approved. And so now the Hone Bridge takes you from basically downtown Milwaukee into like the south, not even suburbs. Like it takes you to Bayview. So the joke is it's the Hone Bridge, Hoan. So the joke on the radio station I used to work for was when you miss the turn to Chicago and end up in Bayview, you got honed. Because you're like, oh, I'm going somewhere. And 2 miles later, it's 50 miles an hour and you're in a neighborhood. And now they've expanded it. So it's like 5 miles and it takes you to South Milwaukee and Cudahy, which I'll tell you, if you know Milwaukee, ain't much better. And I say that, and I used to live there. So I can say it with pride. I used to live right off of 794 in the Bayview, and I play volleyball down in South Milwaukee. So I love it there. Most people don't go there on purpose. Anyway, side note. So let's talk. I want to hear from Matt, and maybe Travis, you can jump in here with regard to like CBs and engineers. What are the types of certifications, Matt, you're looking for? Or what are the types of things? Because there's a lot of stuff we get certified for. We have the opportunity to get certified for at the government's expense, right? What are the certifications or skills you're looking for as someone who's looking to add people in the construction world, and more particularly surveying?
Well, in survey, we don't, there's the only one license you can get. It's a PLS, Professional Land Surveyor's License, and that goes from state to state. What I'm looking for is, and for what I do, I'm not licensed. My dad was. I just happened to learn the skills since I was a little kid. My dad was almost like a drill sergeant, if you want to say. He drilled into me the fundamentals of survey. And what I've been able to take from that is build a career off of it without having certifications. I wouldn't be looking for anything except someone to come in and say, I'm ready, teach me what you know. And if they have experience in CAD, if they have experience in Trimble equipment, that's a plus. But in the 6 months or 3 to 6 months that the SkillBridge program is where I can train somebody in that. It would take a little bit longer, to understand the survey, the basis behind it, the geometry, the math behind it. But if you're doing that in the military, my guess is that you have that training already. You've gone through that. I can't believe that you aren't getting better training in the military than sometimes you can get in the civilian world. You're probably getting the best. And correct me if I'm wrong, but those are the people that I want. I want somebody that is maybe looking, hey, do I want to get into this? And come and talk to me and hey, what can I, and I look at myself as what can I do to help that and show you guys show everybody what we can do. So the certifications aren't necessary. I just need somebody we need people that are going to understand the position that they have. I think we talked, a couple of weeks ago, as a surveyor, you can't go out at night, get drunk, and come to work in the morning with a hangover and decide that you're going to go out and start laying out where this bridge is supposed to be in the middle of the Mississippi River. And actually that's where mistakes happen, right? You need somebody that's going to be focused, 100% focused. And you start thinking, where can you find those people? And that's where I thought, I got to go to the military. And how can I do that? Because those people come in, they're focused, they have discipline. They understand that there's certain things that need to be done at a certain time.
Mm-hmm. I kind of feel like you disqualified half the military when you said you can't show up hungover. So maybe you're barking up the wrong tree, man.
So for the other half of the military, this still applies to.
Maybe that's the Marine Corps. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I Googled it because, that's the end all be all, right? It's a engineer. So an engineering aide. It's a naval rank. Does this sound right? NOS Hotel 140. Does that sound right? Our MOSs are completely different.
Yeah. No, I'm looking at
Hotel 140.
List.
You
so
write
like
down?
CBs, you got builders, steel workers, engineering aides, construction electricians, construction mechanics, utilities men, and equipment operators. what you do as a CB, and a lot of people don't know this, is the vast majority of what the U.S. Navy does is keep sea lanes open and then go in and do humanitarian aid and relief. So when things like hurricanes come through and mess up the Caribbean, like every stinking year, right? The the military go in, and more specifically, usually the Marines will go in with the MEU, and they'll bring in the Seabees to fix the ports, to rebuild the ports, to send divers down to make sure everything's clear, to be able to get ships in to rebuild. They do heavy lift and all these things, and all of that is to say is that they can come into any situation and get shit done. And if they're willing to be trained, you can do whatever you need with them, Matt.
So what is the talked about? What is the daily life of a surveyor?
Well,
This episode is this episode. I'm being intentional here, is because a lot of the other episodes we've done so far have been more, hey, like focus on this, do that. This episode, I want people to say, hey, okay, what does my next career look like, and what questions do I need to ask, and what does my success look like? I've recently been talking with a company that they do acquisitions, and they're talking about mergers and all this other stuff. And the question I finally had, I'm like, oh, this all sounds good. I've been through this before in the past, where I had a venture capitalist, but I finally just asked. I said, okay, what do I do all day? And they didn't have a good answer for me, and that wasn't a very good thing, right? Because I did that before, where it's like, well, what is it Andy does selfishly? What do I do? I don't care about the title and the pay and what do I do all day? So I want to know from you, Matt, tactically, what does a surveyor do? Right? What motivates them? What gets you excited out of bed every morning?
I work hand in hand with with these large bridge builders in America. Some of the largest, if not on this project, it is the largest bridge builder in America. And so you communicate with them on a daily basis, multiple times a day, and you have multiple crews that you're taking care of as a surveyor. You have drilling crews. Like right now, we're drilling caissons in the middle of the river. We've been drilling caissons in the off for a viaduct area, from the Mississippi River, 1,800 feet to the east into Illinois. It's all got to be drilled shafts, and it's 80 feet in the ground. And you have to make sure that you're putting that point right where that 9-foot diameter cylinder is going to go in the ground. You got to make sure that you lay that out, and you get a schedule right every day. And if Andy, from working in construction, schedules are there as a guide, right? There's
Starting point, yes.
Yeah. So and that's where being on point with, when I say on point, it's being sharp, right? And I tell that to my kids all the time. And, they'll look at me and they'll say, what do you mean, Dad? Well, you need to be on point, which means you need to be focused on what you're doing. So, and what I mean by that is your schedule is going to change, which means you have to constantly pivot. You have to say, okay, I know this is going to take an hour. I know this is going to take 2 hours. But this guy just called and said he's not going to be ready until the same time that I'm supposed to be somewhere else. So it's having a relationship with the foreman out there, with the superintendents. And it's getting up in the morning, an hour before you get up, before you have to be to work, and making sure that you know exactly where you're going to be every day, at every moment of every day. Because, for instance, on this project, it's a $500 million project, right? I'm one guy. I'm one surveyor to do all the layout for this project. And that, at Kapur, we actually have a system set up where we can actually do that, where we can send a guy out and, wherever it may be, whether it's Wisconsin, whether it's Wyoming, Montana, California, we can send a guy out trained, ready to take on a project that big. So I get up in the morning, an hour before I have to be to work. I go through my schedule and I say, okay, do I see any conflicts? And a lot of times the conflicts are looked at the afternoon before, because I'll get a schedule, by noon, 1 o'clock the day before for the next day. And then, so I'll look in the afternoon, do I see any scheduling conflicts? That's one of the biggest things, because if a foreman is expecting you to be there and you're not there, and you haven't communicated that you're not going to be there, you're getting a phone call, and you're going to have a hard conversation with somebody because you're expected to be there. So you look for conflicts first and foremost. Second, you get up and you have to think about on the drive into work. I have a 15-minute drive to work. I get there, or as I'm driving in, I'm thinking, okay, what equipment do I need to use? Certain types of what we call layout in surveying, right? You have to lay out. I guess maybe let me back up. I always tell people, they ask me what a surveyor does.
Yeah.
Start
there.
Right? Because my dad used to have this.
I I think of a surveyor, the guy that points to where the thing is supposed to go. So when you do two ends of the bridge, they line up, right? Otherwise, you end up in a meme where the two ends of the bridge don't line up in the middle of the ocean or wherever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that does happen. I mean, in this case, in this project, I have a contractor building one side of the bridge on the Illinois side, and we have another contractor building the other side of the bridge. And I keep saying to the guy on the Missouri side, hey, I need to make sure that this thing lines up in the middle, right? I mean, you don't want to get that far and find out it doesn't. And so I always tell people, the contractor, the guys with the cranes, the guys with all the heavy equipment, those are the guys that build it. As a surveyor, you just tell them where to put it, right? It's not only where it goes on the ground, but it's also in an elevation too, which is very critical when it comes to a bridge, right? The elevation of where you put something. And we have to be within an eighth inch, all the way across a 3,800 foot span across the Mississippi. So that's what a surveyor does. As far as what I'm doing, there's land surveying, there's different breakdowns of surveying. There's construction layout, which is what I do. And then there's land surveying, which is the guys that go and find your property corners, make sure that everything ties together. It's a big puzzle they're putting together, right? With all these properties. And once you're licensed, that's where the right of way of a highway, all those things come into play, right? You're doing platting, you're doing mapping. You're the one that everybody's relying on to make sure that all the puzzle pieces fit together. And I guess that could translate to construction, the layout that we do. I have to take a plan that an engineer designed, decide, okay, which end was this engineer, did he not get enough sleep the night before because this doesn't make sense, or and then decipher things. And I have a great CAD guy. He's in Pennsylvania. Great thing about technology is my CAD guy's in Pennsylvania, and we work together hand in hand. And so I take everything that on the plan, I check it. He builds it in a file. I check it, make sure that it's going to be put out into the field the right way. And then from there, there's normally checks that'll be done by the state. Certain DOTs, certain states will have a surveyor that they contract to come out and check my work. We're hired by the contractor to do the layout, and the state will usually have somebody come out and do it. On this project, I don't necessarily have that, so the pressure's on, right? Nobody's going to be there checking me, so if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. There's a liability that goes with that. So that, going back to the point, I don't have an option, right? I don't have an option to have a hangover. I don't have an option to have other things in my life just be taking over my mind. It has to be 100% focused. So getting back to the daily routine is on my way into work. I make sure that I know equipment that I'm going to be using. What do I need to do? Am I going out on the water? I got to make sure I have all the right equipment, the right safety equipment. And then you have to think about, what are you actually laying out? What are you actually giving them points for? And, we have to do offsets for things, right? Drilled shaft, 9 feet in diameter. You can't stake the center of it. It's in the water. It's hanging out in the middle of nowhere. So there's templates that they put in, and you have to give offsets, and you have to make sure all that works out, work hand in hand with that foreman. And as soon as you're done, you get back in a crew boat and you say, okay, I need to go over here, and I need to be there in 5 minutes because I need to be over there for that foreman. And I like that. I like being busy all day. If I had another person here, I'd be bored. I wouldn't be as busy as I am, which keeps me focused, which keeps me mentally on the job 100% all the time. I guess that's what I'm looking for.
So I'm going to need you to restate all that without using any of your techno jargon or your techno babble. I know what some of this stuff is, right? But the people that don't know, what's a caisson, what's a viaduct, what's CAD, what's a foreman, what's a contractor, what is all of those things that you just mentioned? Because I can tell you right now, the vast majority of people in the military, they're not using those terms.
Okay. Well, a caisson think of a caisson as the shoulders that a bridge sits on. It's in this case, we have 60 to 80 foot cylinders of concrete that are drilled in the ground. They have a rebar cage in them that's lowered in, and it's poured full of concrete. And then from there, it's called part of the substructure, right? Everything up to the metal girders that you drive, that are, I guess if you want to say what you would drive, the superstructure is the metal girders and up. The girders are the iron beams that
Mhm.
hold up the concrete on the deck. They take all the energy from all the traffic that goes over a bridge and they transfer that down into the ground, into the bedrock. So a caisson is the shoulders of a bridge. You don't see it; it's underground.
Mm.
Um, and there's a bunch of them. There's a lot of them. And oh, what else? A foreman. Foreman is someone that's in charge of a construction crew. They're the guy that's leading the men that have to get this bridge built.
Mhm.
Uh, Refresh me. What were some other terms that I need to describe? They're an
Well,
everyday thing for me, so
I
I apologize.
appreciate you speaking about that. I was kind of giving you a hard time. The hardest thing for anyone in any industry, whatever they're professional at, is decoding what they're saying to reach the audience. I did an interview with a gal who helps you cure stage fright, so you can get out there and you can nail your message. I did an interview with her, but she's a psychologist, and most of the time she speaks to other psychologists. So when she came on my show, and we did the whole thing. I was like, oh, great, great. How'd you feel? She's like, well, how did you feel? I was like, I feel like no one knows what the hell you're talking about. And I would love to re record an episode where we translate all of the stuff that psychologists care about and that is valid for people that are just not into that realm. They don't know what the heck it is you're talking about. They're gonna get, and I'm not trying to diss you or ping on you in the slightest, but understanding what it is that you're trying to convey based on the audience that you're speaking to. So really, what it sounds like to me is you're looking for, and correct me if I'm wrong, someone that's reliable, that's going to have a great attitude, that's going to get shit done. Is that about sum it up?
That's exactly it. I can train them in what I do. I can 100% train them in what I do. I'll teach, in the first, if I have somebody for 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to have a encyclopedia of knowledge that they're going to have to know, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be, I want to be a mentor to somebody, and being a mentor means that you're going to be a teacher. Um, I had great ones. I had great mentors. I still have one. He's my manager now. He's a great mentor. And yeah, that's what I need. I need reliable people that are going to show up that I can say, okay, this guy is trainable. This guy is something that I can get. I can show him exactly what I know, and I can hopefully in 6 months into a year, I can send him to a project. We can send him to a project, and I'm not going to have any doubt that he's going to be able to focus and get this project done.
Does someone have to go to this training in person? Is it something they can do virtually, or do they have to relocate?
Um, the best would be to relocate. I mean, I have to show them physically what they have to do. It's a
Yeah.
we do it's a surveyors. Some survey is not physical, but what I do is physical. And they need to get up there and they need to see exactly what we're doing. I Some of the training as far as CAD training, if they're interested in CAD work,
And that's computer aided
CAD
design,
training,
right?
yeah, computer aided design. Sorry, yes. Um, CAD training can be done virtually.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, what I do, you have to, you got to be there. You got to be there to see
So,
what the contractors are doing.
so are there more surveyors that are doing what you're doing, building bridges and figuring that stuff out, or is it the guys that are going out, checking stakes in people's yards?
I'm not sure what the percentages are among surveyors, but I know contractors hire surveyors. Um, like me, I work for an engineering firm, but contractors like the one I work for, they'll hire surveyors too. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them because every construction project you have out there, whether you're doing sidewalk, whether you're doing a bridge, whether you're doing a road, a 4-lane highway through the middle of nowhere, if you're doing shoreline work along the coast, all of it needs survey work. Somebody has to be there to show these contractors where does it go. And I'm finding it's obvious in the industry that there aren't people getting into it. And it's hard to reach those young people. It's hard. So we're trying to find every avenue we can, and why not do something that can help somebody in the meantime, along with it.
Do a lot of general contractors have their own built-in surveyors, or do you have to hire a third-party company to do the survey? Like, why do the big bridge builders have their own surveyors on staff,
They do.
or are they not allowed to? Because okay,
They do. I mean, there's certain projects, um, you know, the contractor we're working for, they have a Chicago office, and Their Chicago office it generally tends to go towards, like the company I work for, Kapur, to do these big mega projects across the nation. They'll get prices from us.
Yeah.
It's competitive. The bigger you are, usually the bigger contractor you are, you'll have your own on-staff survey. I was out in Washington. I
Yeah.
was out in Washington D.C. working for the same company, and they had their own surveyors. They just needed me to come out there and finish the project. So a lot of times these contractors will get a surveyor, or they'll train somebody up to be a surveyor. And then sometimes they'll ask us for a price because the surveyors they have on staff, they don't have enough staff to actually cover all the projects that they're doing, that they're bidding as a general contractor. So they'll ask us to be a subcontractor, or what we fall under is a professional services agreement.
Yeah.
It's a nice way of saying we're part of the engineering field, when it comes to survey layout. And they will call us and say, hey, we don't have enough staff to do this. Can you guys give us a price to come on and do this, the construction layout for this project? But a lot of big contractors have their own. It's competitive. Sometimes we have to deal with their own in-house survey. So it's hard to get projects, but I've never not been busy. There's enough work out there with the infrastructure money coming from the federal government. There's more work out there right now than contractors, and therefore there's a shortage on surveyors.
And you had mentioned earlier you got to get guys in the field doing the thing with you. Your situation. How long? I mean, are you gone from home for a while? Weeks, months, years on end? What does that look like? What does that schedule look like? Or are you, could you just stay in your area? What is that?
You can do
that life alignment.
For me personally, I travel, right? I'm gone 5 days, I'm home 2 days. It's something that I'm trying to transition out of. I've made a decision with my family. We're going to move down here to St. Louis, and I'm from the Milwaukee area. That we're gonna move down to St. Louis because I guess as part of my responsibility as a family man is I need to be around my family. My family's willing to move. And I worked 4 years in Iowa in the Quad Cities. You ever get a chance to go see that bridge there? It's one of the most beautiful bridges and most complex designs and construction techniques to build it that you could possibly imagine. So yeah, there is the travel. If guys are willing to travel, there is relocation that we can do. It's usually some guys will go, it depends on what kind of contractor you work for. Like, let's just say a foundation contractor, the people that do the caissons like we had talked about, they may be on the project for 3 months and then they're gone. And then they'll come back 3 years later to do the other half of the bridge for 3 months. As survey, we're generally there from start to finish. It's one of those.
You don't miss a day.
What's that?
You don't miss a day. There's not. I mean, yeah, it's not project based. It's the entire project.
It is because there's survey needed from start to finish. Whether it's like I said, the caissons, whether it's silt fence, we have to lay out silt fence. Silt fence is, and I keep going. I got to explain this stuff. Silt fence is the fence that stops dirt from leaving a job when they start moving dirt around.
That's the black fence with stakes.
Yeah.
It's like woven.
Yep.
Got it. Okay.
And sometimes you got to put up snake fence so snakes can't leave your project or get into your project and you got to put up frog fence or whatever it may be based on the environmental.
Are those the technical terms? Frog fence, stake fence?
Well, I've seen it called snake fence on a plan sheet before. Never seen it called frog fence, but it's kind of a joke amongst people, on the job. We got to save the frogs, But we have our whole. I'm going to get in trouble with our whole environmental department for saying that, but.
So Matt, what I really want to know is what project have you done as a surveyor that had like the most personal impact on you?
It was the previous project I was on in the Quad Cities in Iowa-Illinois border, another bridge over the Mississippi. It was coming from, younger when I was a surveyor with my dad. We did a lot of boundary surveys for farmers. We'd take 5 acres off of a 40-acre field that the farmer wanted to sell to somebody or give to his son. And that's kind of the things that we did. And we would do house stakeouts, things like that, lay out for a stakeout for a foundation so the excavation contractor could dig a hole, right? And then I got into construction layout. When I came back to Kapur, we were doing some energy work up north, pipeline work, but I came back and I got into construction layout for bridges. And I got to go to the zoo interchange in Milwaukee, right? That was the first project. That was going to be my career project until it was offered this project to go to the project in the Quad Cities. I had never done a bridge like this before, like that before. It was the most challenging I'd ever seen, even on paper. And I took it was a project that took every ounce of my survey ability and knowledge every single day to make sure that it was built right. I didn't have a choice, and that's what made it satisfying for me. That's what I was able to. When you have a project like that, you're able to walk or drive away or walk away from that project, and whatever part you had in it. As a surveyor, you have. It's not a glory. It's not. You don't get a lot of glory for being a surveyor. I'm going to be honest. The iron workers get the glory, right? They're the ones hanging the steel. They're the ones that everybody sees. They're hanging banners off of the arch. They're they're the ones that get the glory. And I'm not about glory. I'm able to say, walk away or drive away from that job and say that I did a good job and I was challenged every single day. It's an arch bridge that is won I believe, and I have not fact checked this, but I believe it's every award that it has been that is applied for or has been presented to, it has won. It has won every award. Best bridge in America. At one time they were saying it was best bridge while we were building it, best bridge in America, or the number one bridge in America, number three bridge in America. It was all debatable on what it was. And that was the best project. I don't know that I'll ever find a project like that again. I'm hoping because
Is that the I-74 bridge?
it is the I-74 Mississippi River Bridge. If you look at it, it doesn't look that complicated. It's just a very beautiful arch, but there is what we call thrust bearings, right? Thrust bearings are bearings up in the air. Up in the air that normal arch bridge will come down to the water level. That's where the steel will start. This had to start up 70 feet in the air. We had to get the concrete to match the actual to match the concrete. If you can see there, the concrete pillar or the concrete piers that come up out of the water that are holding the arch had to be at the same exact batter or the same exact arc angle as the arch itself, and that was challenging. We had these huge bearings that they had to lower in and pour concrete around, and the face of that bearing had to be milled down to within. If my memory serves me correct, we're talking hundredths of an inch that it had to be milled to the correct face, if you want to call it that. That is the bridge that I would consider, at this point right now, that's the career project for me. It was a 4.5-year project, and I feel grateful that I was able to be a part of it. They're tearing the one down behind it right now. The one with the green one. That was built in the 1920s. And that's being torn down right now. So
that's got to give you
that was going to be my next question. Yeah, go ahead, Travis.
I was going to say that's got to give you a high degree of personal and professional satisfaction to go out and be able to work every day and make something like that happen. You don't see that all the time in the military. There's a couple of levels in the military. It's the tactical, boots on the ground doing stuff. There's the operational level where people are moving the chess pieces, and there's the strategic level where you're up there really working on policy and making things happen. And I largely worked in the strategic realm, so I had a very unsatisfying career as far as actually like doing stuff for the military. All my satisfaction came between the people around me that I got to help lead and develop over time. So it's really nice to be able to see someone's actually getting some satisfaction from doing the thing. That's wonderful.
Yeah, Andy mentioned before that, he would drive around and his dad would point out projects. I don't know how many times I've driven through the zoo interchange and the girls would be like, "Oh, Dad, here's the zoo interchange. Can you tell us about how you were up on that bridge? And you're doing this and doing that." And, I'll drive through my community I used to, that live in. And I was a contractor for a number of years with my own business. And I'll drive by a hotel and I'll be like, "Hey, I did the grading and excavate and sewer and water for that project." And my kids will just say, "Dad, is there a project you didn't do? Is there, is any, and that's, I get satisfaction out of looking at something and saying, not about the glory. It's about, I was able to produce there's multiple facets to it, right? It helps the city economy. It helped my business grow at the time. All these different things. And what I'm doing now is people don't really understand, people driving over bridges don't really understand what it takes to build it. They don't, they just think it's a problem. This is why are you disrupting my commute into work? Um, and if, seeing it built from the ground up, literally underground up,
Mhm.
um, because, it takes a long time. It takes a long time. And I can see, it's almost where, oh, you kind of wish you just start pouring concrete decks so that people can start driving on it. But you start to understand exactly what it takes when you see this piece by piece, all these different contractors come in. Um, and this, I guess the satisfaction that I get is it's driving away from it. But during the project, to keep me motivated, is that every one of these guys relies on me, right? They rely on a surveyor to make sure that they're going to be able to build it correctly. And that keeps me going every single day. Is that I can't not show up. I have to be here. I have to be here. I had these guys are relying on me, and it gives me to give you an example of satisfaction is that I thought my dad had done everything in his career. He started survey at Kapur back in the early '80s, and it was built up from exponentially from there. And I remember he was sick in the hospital, and I was talking to him on the phone and over FaceTime, and I was talking to him about the project, and he said, "This is something it's more than I've ever done, Matt." And I thought, wow, if I'm doing something at my age more than my dad has ever done, I better stand back and look at this and say, I better be grateful that I'm here. I better have that. Um, I better have that mentality that I'm a part of something big here, even though you walk away from it and it's going to be there for the next 100 years, which is satisfaction in itself. That you were a part of something, and I think that's important. And I don't have the experience of coming out of the military. I don't have the experience of being in the military, but I got to believe that transition is hard. That transition is hard. Andy, you said something to me the last couple of weeks ago that really stuck with me is that the Army gives you all the answers, right? The military gives you all the answers. And when you come out, I got to believe that these people are like, well, what do I do now? I've been told how to do something forever, for as long as I've been in. And having, I guess, I want to be that mentor that can give people that drive, that if they have the passion, I'll show them exactly what we can do. I'll show them that you can have some meaning in your life, right? In your career. You can have meaning in your career, that you're going to be a part of something that you probably didn't know about before. You didn't know about how these bridges were built, but it's an important part of the industry, is the surveying side of it.
Well, and this is the challenge. You got men and women that come out. Let's look at three tiers. I guess there's probably four tiers. They're not probably. There's four tiers when people get out of the military. I make it up as I go, Travis. Where there's four tiers. There's people that get out after their first enlistment, right? So let's call them the mid-20s, early to mid-20s, right? And then you got the guys that get out after they've been in, whether they made like '03 as an officer side of the house, or they make E5, E6, right? And those are the guys that get out midterm. So they get out that 10, 12-year mark. Then you got the guys that get out at the 20-year mark, and so those guys are in their 40s. And you get the guys and girls that get out in their mid-50s that are really, truly careerists. And the challenge is, at all times, right? You're expected to know a hell of a lot more than what you probably do. So if you get out at 22, 23 years old, and you in the last time you were in the civilian world, you were a 17-year-old, there's a lot of life things that you might not have done. You haven't signed a lease. You haven't had a job interview. You've never done a resume, right? So you look at a 22, 23-year-old and like, how do you not have a resume and a job interview? You've never done a job interview. It's like, well, because I've never needed to. I joined the Army and away I went. Or I've seen a lot of people in their early 30s that get out and it's like, well, you have leadership experience. It's like, well, I have leadership experience when people legally had to listen to what I had to tell them. And there was no strategy. There was no tact, right? The Army doesn't teach you tact or beginning with the why in mind, explaining the greater purpose behind the result. That ain't the type of leadership we're used to in the military, right? Or I got buddies now, I'm 39. I got buddies that are late 30s, early 40s that put their 20 in. I got a buddy in particular, man, I met him 4 years ago and we worked together and he's like, yeah, I can't wait. He was like 19 and a half years. He's like, I'm gonna get my letter and I'm out. And then he went on LinkedIn and he goes, fuck this. I don't even know what, like, he was on LinkedIn for a half a day. Like, oh, I'm just going to get a job because I was told to go to LinkedIn. He goes, man, I don't even know where to start. He's like, this is like Facebook. I don't know what these people are talking about. I'm reading these articles. It's not even that I can't read the article. I don't even know what this even means. And now 4 years later, he's like 23 years and he can milk it till 26 years in. And he's like, dude, I'm going to be daddy daycare. My wife's going to, because she's a nurse, right? Because he went from this mindset of he's like, dude, I'm 40 and I don't know how to write an email, right? Because he writes emails for the military, but writing an email, I'll tell you, I was known as Andy the Angry Emailer. Matt and I used to work waste management together. And Matt may or not have been in a meeting or two where I got my peppy slapped for emails that I wrote because right in the military, right, we're taught bottom line up front. Civilian world, they don't like bottom line up front. That's not you gotta ease them in. You gotta church it up. You gotta right. And also the military, in this military, there is only one way to reply. It's called reply all. No one's on blind carbon copy. Tell you what, when I got to corporate America, I realized everyone's BCC and shit. You never reply all. You reply to some. No, even in our company now, I hit reply all and I say what I gotta say. Mm-hmm. Man, right? So it's those skills that you're not groomed into. When you go to college, they teach you how to adult a little bit and tell you the rules of the road. And then you get your first job and you're kind of taught. When you're 40, coming out of the military after 20 years, the rules of the road don't apply. It's a different road. And for like Travis, you jumped into entrepreneurship, so it's like, you can figure out as you go. I know a lot of guys that jump in and work for a company and they're gone within 6 months. It's not that they couldn't learn the skills. It's their way of communicating, their way of leadership does not line up very well with corporate America. And corporate America, like, oh, we want people that are disciplined and structured. And it's like, well, the environment plays a huge factor. It's not always the person. Mm-hmm. And then you also get someone on the flip side, you might get someone that's too structured and disciplined, too rigid. You get in corporate America where you have to be flexible. And it's like, well, where are we flexible and where are we rigid here? And it's a struggle. So those are the places where that's the struggle that military members I've seen that are active duty come back with. It's like they look like they got their shit together. They got the ranks and the awards and the ribbons to go with it. And yet they can't put together a resume because, like, even to your point, or Travis, your point earlier, Matt, Matt's talking, and I know what a foreman is and I know what computer aided, draft and design is. And I know all these terms and it's like, I'm keeping up. And Travis is like, hold on, I'm a podcaster. I can tell you everything there is to know about an ejection seat, right? And I don't understand what you're talking about here, right? So this is why we struggle as veterans coming to the civilian world. It's a different language. It's a different culture, and you don't want to admit it. 30 years old, 40 years old, hell, 20 years old. You don't admit you don't know something because in the military you're expected not to know shit because it's so foreign. But you come back as a 30 or 40-year-old and you're like, hey, what is it the surveyor does? We're like, well, we did. No. Oh, you point. Got it. You point so the thing goes in the right spot so the bridge lines up with the other bridge so we can drive. Okay, got it. Right? And like that's the level. And not in a incompetent way, just ignorance. Like you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I mean, Travis can tell you about aircraft that I would know nothing about. Right? And you would know nothing about it and tell us everything there is to know about it. That's not a very transferable skill. Right?
We mean there
If
wasn't a big line at the ejection seat factory for me to go work at when I got out? All those ejection seat jobs?
Oh, the ejection seat job. Yeah, like I was a Mark 19 gunner, which is an automatic grenade launcher, 30 Mike grenades, and I fell off again. Anyways, I'll tell the story. I don't give a shit. I love the Mark 19. Thankfully, in the civilian world, we don't have a surplus of jobs as Mark 19 gunners. Right? That's a good thing.
Right. It really is.
That's a naval weapon too. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's a naval weapon designed in Vietnam. So the Navy did something right. The Mark 19 automatic grenade launcher. They did. They had that's why it's called a Mark. I found all about it. Why it's a Mark 19 and why. Yeah, everything about it is different than every other Army system, weapon system that I've used. And actually, it's my favorite. And I shouldn't admit that because I have disdain for the Navy, only because I'm in the Army and I don't like water. Like those are two good reasons. But then Mark 19, oh man, my favorite weapon system in the military. You did that right. And this is how that went. We were in line. This is how the Army decides what job you're going to do for a living. It was all the E4 and below, and I was an E3. I made just E4. I made specialist. Anyways, they basically took the lowest ranking, and they're like, all right, you guys are gunners. And it went 50 cal, Mark 19, 50 cal, Mark 19, right down the line. And that was Mark 19. They pointed at me and said, Mark 19, you go in this line. And 50 cal, I've shot it a few times. I couldn't tell you shit about nothing. You give me a Mark 19, oh man, we can put rounds down range and on target. I can get the most incompetent person to put rounds on target confidently in a Mark 19. You got 30 rounds to work with. So I can get you to hit the thing eventually. Anyways. I liken the Mark 19 to watching Brett Favre, the greatest football quarterback player, most entertaining player of all time. Brett Favre, when he back in the early 90s, he did a quarterback challenge, and he threw the ball so hard with so much velocity, the ball would hook to the right because of the rotation of the football. And that's the same way in Mark 19. When the rounds come out, they're running clockwise. So over time, they what is that, golf? Fade? Is it a fade to the right? I don't golf.
I think it's the Coriolis effect is the physics term.
Yeah, again. Oh my, see? Navy guys. Fucking Navy guys. I'm talking Brett Favre, quarterback challenge from the early 90s, rotation. We got Coriolis over here. Don't use a $3 word when a nickel will do. Okay, fine. It goes to the right. I was trying to use a golf term.
That is a fade, though, in golf.
It is a fade. Thank you.
Yeah.
What is it to the left? I do the thing to the left. What is it?
Left, yeah.
Hook. What about the soft left? A hook is a hard left. What is a draw? A draw. Soft left. A draw. Because then it's a
Draw,
slice.
fade,
There we
hook,
go.
and
Okay,
shake.
hold on.
Yep.
Shake. That's
Yeah.
9-iron. Hit him with a tire iron.
Do you golf?
Yeah.
You don't golf anymore? Did you ever golf, Andy?
No, here's what I do. I golf, now that we're way off topic. I golf, the last 4 years, I've golfed one round of 18, like adult golf every year. And I played a really nice course every time because it's like, well, if I get invited to a really nice course, I'll do the thing. Last week, though, I crashed a networking event that I wasn't invited to. I heard about it. I showed up there. They're like, who do you know? And I just name dropped somebody that worked for the insurance company. And so it was a virtual golf in the simulator, and they had a foursome that was a threesome. So I fell in with them, and I go, hey, here's the deal. I can hit a ball. I can hit a 3-wood, 230 yards straight. So that's what I'm going to do for you. I don't putt. I don't chip. No approach. 230 yards. You just tell me where to hit it. And so when you're playing a foursome scramble, you put 4 balls in play, and whoever's the best ball, because it was the best ball. And so I was the insurance guy. I was put it 230 yards down, middle of the pipe, and then the other guys are hitting the driver and going for 250, 300. And then about 3/4 away, about 14th hole, I hit the driver a few times to see what would happen. And I hit one 280 in the fairway, and the guys were like, well, have you been doing this the whole time? I was like, I don't promise shit. And what it is I'm 6'4" and I don't care. So it's this very long, lackluster swing that if I make good contact, we're golden. When I don't make good contact, I don't feel bad at all. I'm like, all right, whatever. I don't care. Because there's the guys that go out every weekend, or even now they have the heated driving ranges. No, I don't even own club. I have a putter and a couple irons. So I'll hit balls. I like golfing. I don't prioritize 4 hours of walk around, sweat my ass off more than once a year. There you go. if someone invited, and I've played nice courses. I played Grand Geneva. I played the Greenbrier. It's a PGA course. I played that last year. Played Grand Geneva the year before. So yeah, any listener wants to take me out for a round of golf, I'll do it. You just make it worth my while.
Just have the cart girls coming around all the time, right?
I don't really drink much anymore either, so it's like I might as well. I'd rather be at work. I'd rather be working than golfing. I'm that guy. Oh yeah, yeah. The president of our company, he loves golfing. So whenever people invite me to a foursome, let's play around. I'm like, just take Ken, get him out of the office. I get more shit done when he's not here, and he doesn't mind. He loves golfing. What about you, Travis? You golf? Now that we're talk surveyor shit.
Yeah.
You golf at all?
I actually do golf. When I was going to get commissioned, I thought that was a skill that I had to have as an officer.
See?
So I went out and started
Smart
golfing
mind.
and tried to get
Smart
into it. And every time I broke a new record for myself, I get myself a new set of clubs. So I bought the Walmart $119 full set of clubs. Then I shot a 90 with it, and then I went out and I got a
wow.
What the hell do I use now? I don't even know. It's a tailor-made RBZ set that I got when I shot into the 80s. So I've actually I've shot a 78.
All right. Well, if I'm under 100, that's a good round for me.
That's where the
78.
vast majority of people are. Is the vast majority of people their best game is at 100, and for some reason, it just clicked with me.
That's it. Are you an athletic person?
Do I look like an athletic person?
You know what? Let me tell you.
It's bar sports.
I'm not here to
It's
judge.
Bowling, darts, pool,
Yeah.
ping pong, golf, poker. I can do all of those things. You want
Poker
me
is
out there
sport.
on a 5-on-5 basketball? Just make sure you put me on the other team if you want to guarantee a win.
Well, I'll tell you what. I typically don't play sports. I'm 6'4", so I don't play sports unless I have a distinct advantage. Like volleyball, basketball, I'm your man. Like somebody say, "Oh, you have an advantage in golf because you got a longer swing." No, I need a significant advantage. I need a volleyball or basketball type of advantage, right? Like, yeah, no, like I've never wrestled. Darts I'm okay at because I'm halfway to the board by the time I lean in a little bit. Always sucked at pool. I love playing cards though, not poker. I love playing spades. I put together a monthly spades game. This Friday is our first time playing. We're all vets, and that's because I threw up on Facebook who wants to play spades, and of course only veterans know how to play spades. Up in our area they call it euchre, which is another.
Yeah.
It's like hillbilly. Okay, it's hillbilly spades. We can only count to 5. It's only picture cards. It's spades for Marines. That's basically what it is. It's only the picture cards.
Stuff. Spades, heart,
I can play.
euchre,
Yeah,
pitch, setback, all of those games.
Pitch. Oh my god.
All them games.
What the hell? Next time. So on our other podcast that we did earlier today, of all times, we talked about how Travis and I met. We went to a conference. We had lunch together. Spent the next 4 days at the conference and saw each other twice, like in passing, waving on the escalator. So next time we're actually at a conference or doing something, we actually have to spend time. And we didn't mean to go out to lunch together. It was we knew the same guy that was one picking us all up and taking us to lunch.
Yeah,
he's my lawyer. So
that's just how it works sometimes, right?
Yeah, and he had the yellow sunglasses, and that's what I remembered about him. And I was like, this fucking guy. And now, right here, right now is his hallmark. If he doesn't have them, people are upset. It's me in the camo pants. Someone saw me in jeans the other day, and they were so disappointed. They're like, that ain't.
Yeah, I would
I
be
had jeans
too.
and flip flops. It was 80 degrees out last week.
I can't go to my
So-
buddy's house without my damn sunglasses with me. He's like, Hollywood,
One
where them
job.
shades at? Like,
It's
All
like,
right, well, now,
if I don't see you
see,
with
this
a
is what
hat,
happens
Randy.
after 1 hour podcasting. What's that?
if I don't see you with a hat, a baseball
Me
hat,
without
on,
a hat? Oh.
it-
And the thing is, I don't have Travis head of hair. I got a nice head of hair. Travis got, that's legit.
Yeah.
That's,
you have to do
It's
your
those
hair,
legal
Travis.
hair.
Huh?
You probably had that.
Look at this. You have to do your hair.
man, holy cow.
yeah.
Remember, hey,
Holy cow.
you remember
I
that
knew
time?
Matt when he had hair. That's how long I've known him.
You remember when I came into that waste management meeting with that painted hair? Remember when Brad Stendel was all?
You had painted his.
Well, it was for Halloween,
I didn't know that.
and I had
Oh, yeah.
I just took my hat off and set it on the table because there needed to be some sort of laugh
Yeah.
in there because some of those meetings
Oh,
was
yeah.
brutal.
We used to get destroyed Thursday mornings. Every Thursday morning, 9 a.m., just get our asses handed to us.
We did.
And that's why we're not in corporate
Why?
America anymore. Because corporate America and Matt and I weren't yes people.
No.
Oh,
I have
how
I have a
dare you.
great
How dare you.
I have a great relationship. I have a great relationship with WM. They go by WM now. They got rid of Waste Management earlier this year. I have a great relationship with WM now that I'm not longer of the employee, and I do subcontractor work, and I can speak my mind. Um, back then, 10 years ago or so, when I worked for Waste Management, I did not have a great relationship with them. It was mutual. They didn't like me. I didn't like them. So I'm meant to be an entrepreneur, not a paper pusher corporate America guy. Anyhow,
Travis, I,
All
I,
all
I have a
right.
question for you, Travis.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
the Skill Bridge program? You've been working through that, or you're part of it already?
You did.
I used the
Graduated.
SkillBridge program to leave the Navy a couple months early.
Oh, you used it to leave the Navy. Okay.
Yeah.
Because right now
Yeah.
we're trying to put together our training program. Because looking through the requirements for it.
Yep.
Obviously there's going to be some oversight that and some somebody from the DoD that's going to have to look through all of our things and approve it all. Uh, so I'm trying to get all of the pieces in order to make sure that
Mhm.
when I put the application through to the DoD, that it flies through with goes through with flying colors. Because there are
Yeah.
some pretty specific requirements for it.
There are. Take a look at organizations like the Veteran Franchise Initiative. All the aviation shops have it. Lockheed, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, McDonnell Douglas. All of those people have been approved, so they can put you in the right direction if you're a business and you want to be an approved partner on SkillBridge. And you can even go there. The website is skillbridge.osd.mil, and you can go in there and find people. Find people in whatever area. There's someone in your local area, I guarantee you, that does that stuff, especially being in St. Louis. Go down there and talk to them. Say, hey, what did you guys do to get approved? How do we do this? Don't reinvent the wheel. Figure out who else made the wheel and see how you can
Hmm.
model your stuff after them.
Yeah, I like that. I don't like reinventing wheels.
Appreciate. Yeah, let's it's, when you steal from one person, it's called plagiarism. When you steal from everybody, it's called research. So let's go around the room real quick. Travis, top takeaway: your first day co-hosting the Welcome Home podcast.
Top takeaway for me is that, become a surveyor. Do something fun. Challenge yourself. Get outside and have job satisfaction.
Matt, top takeaway.
That there are people out there. I just need to reach them, and I'm motivated to do it. I'm motivated to do it.
Well, I hear Andy's got
Top,
great
top
connections at Jobber.
It's true. Jobber. I don't know if those are going to be. I don't know if they'll be able to find a surveyor, but hey, we'll put content out with Jobber and or in conjunction with Jobber. Actually, if they have the construction management people, that's interesting. My top takeaway is, you're in the military, we get things done. We see a problem and we solve it. Whether it was Travis jumping on to co-host this with 20 minutes notice, or Matt, you reached out to me because you saw me putting stuff out here and said, hey, let's get military done. We are known in the military as people that get stuff done. I want us to lean in the military, lean in on our strengths, lean in on what unites us, not what divides us, and how do we work with our civilian counterparts so we can live the careers post-military that we've always dreamed of. So that's my takeaway. As always, I love everybody that's out there, for the veterans that are in the transformation process. We're here from you. If you haven't heard this from anybody else lately, welcome home.